As a car guy, I would be lying if I told you that I don't value performance over looks. The car can look as cool as you want it to, but if it can't fly around the twisties with my buddies, then I just don't want it, alright? But that is not the majority of people. The majority of people care more about gas mileage, reliability, and looks, and due to that, it is very, very hard for a car company to make a car that can appeal to absolutely everybody. But not Honda. I am Mark Roden, and this is what makes the Acura TL so great. In the early 90s, Japan was going through an economic bubble. Every company to come from Japan was finally starting to sell ridiculously well, and those boys had some bands. This is massively thanks to their recent success in American markets, since us Americans love to buy things. It's like our guilty pleasure. For instance, for girls, they spend money on like really weird items. Every other week, they have like some new water bottle that's going to help them drink more water or something. But men obviously don't do that. We just drink our water when we feel like we need it. However, we are not getting off that easy because we also like to spend our money on things that we don't need. And for anybody watching this video, that is most likely cars and car parts. But back then, they had lots of laws on the amount of cars that you were allowed to import to the United States per year, and these companies were starting to sell so well that they needed to come up with a way to sell more cars to us Americans. So they started completely new brands that would be based in the United States and sell some of their more expensive models and market it as luxury to us Americans. For Nissan, they would create Infiniti, Toyota would create Lexus, and Honda would create Acura with the launch of the Acura Legend.
For some, it's entertainment. For others, it's travel. Acura. Some things are worth the price.
The Acura Legend did incredibly well. It was a sedan that rivaled the BMW and Mercedes in terms of luxury, but was still priced as cheap as something like a normal Honda Civic Si would be. And so this plan to make new companies to sell more cars worked really well. So only a couple of years after the Legend was born, in the year 1996, they gave us the wonderful Acura TL.
Golf shoe.
We could toss you some compelling metaphor or simile.
Like what? Like...
But inevitably, you'd come up with your own.
This new Acura was even cheaper than the Legend before it, and it had almost the same amount of luxury in it. However, the main takeaway was the fact that it was now more sport-oriented than the Acura Legend. As a matter of fact, the name TL stands for Touring Luxury, meaning that you could cruise around in this thing all day long without getting bored or uncomfortable. At first, the car only came with a 2.5-liter inline-5, and it only made 176 horsepower, which may sound like not that much, but back in the 90s, this car was no slouch at all. But then, they decided they wanted to make it even faster and introduced the 3.2-liter V6 to the Acura TL lineup. This new motor would only bump the horsepower up by 24, but that brought it to the perfect 200 horsepower number, and that was enough to make the public happy. And remember that this car was built more on the side of luxury anyways, so the features that this thing had massively made up for any performance that it was missing. Some things that were offered on this car were dual airbags, anti-lock brakes, a moonroof, power window, doors and locks, leather where leather shouldn't be, it was the 90s, so obviously, and even automatic climate control, which definitely wasn't like top of the line luxury, even for the 90s, but it was much better than buying something like a Civic or Camry of the same year.
Nice. Made me happy, made me smile. Nice.
The second generation of the TL would come after a very short 2 years, simply because Acura felt like they could do a whole lot better. And they did. The second gen decided to completely drop the 2.5-liter from the lineup and instead focused on making the 3.2-liter much better than it was before. At first, the engine was still only making 200 horsepower, but only a year after launch, the engine was tuned to make a little bit more, and now it sat comfortably at 225 horsepower for the remainder of the second generation's runtime, which is very impressive to say the least. The car started making 176 horsepower in 1996, and only 3 years later in 1999 it was making 225. But yet again, this car was not focused on its speed, but rather its comfort. So of course, those guys at Acura kept the interior and its features exactly the same as the first generation. Psych, I'm just kidding, obviously. They made it so much better to drive. It was freaking great. It was now given side airbags, which is, yes, just a safety feature, but I ain't complaining. They also gave it a 5-speed automatic instead of the old 4-speed, which not only allowed for better gas mileage, but also a decently better acceleration time, and they massively touched up on the navigation system. But if you think that that's all they introduced with the second generation TL, you are wrong, my friend. In 2001, they released a coupe version of the TL, but sadly it did not sell well compared to its sedan sister, so they discontinued it in 2003. But also in 2002, they finally gave the TL the badge that everybody fears about when talking Hondas. That's right, buddy, old pal. The damn Acura TL got the Type S treatment. Now, yes, this is nowhere near as important as the wonderful Type R badge, but Acura does not mess around when it comes to their Type S model. I mean, just look at the RSX, okay? This new and improved track-oriented TL still had every feature in it that the base model TL had, but now it was given 35 more horsepower, bringing it all the way up to 260 horsepower, which is pretty damn quick while still being reliable, cheap, and good on gas because it's a damn Honda. They also gave the Type S 17-inch wheels instead of 16s, track-style seats that held you nice when taking corners but were still comfortable to sit in, and a refined suspension so that the car experienced way less body roll, but while still making the driver feel like he was riding on clouds. All these new advancements with the second generation TL only cemented what everybody already thought. The TL was here to stay.
Brakes and takes on the curves. Because no two drivers are alike.
The third generation TL came out in 2004 and is still to this day definitely the most loved generation of the luxury sports car from Acura, which I mean makes sense considering what they did to it. The car was once again offered with the 3.2 liter V6 that became a staple for the TL at this point, but now it was making 270 horsepower at launch in the base model. That's crazy. On top of that, this was the first TL to be offered with a manual transmission, and if you decided to get the manual transmission, you got a bunch more sporty goodness too. It was given stiffer anti-roll bars, a Brembo front brake calipers, and even a damn limited slip differential, my good friend. This thing was slowly becoming a beast of a luxury car, and I know I sound like a broken record here, but once again, the features and luxury was massively improved. They obviously changed the normal stuff like better safety features, a new dashboard, new center console, new seats, but most importantly, they changed the sound system. The 2004 TL was offered with quite literally the best sound system that was offered in American markets at the time. Nowadays, sure, the sound system doesn't really hold up, but back when it came out, it was something that had to be heard to believe. And since I know you are all wondering about it, yes, the TL was given the Type S treatment yet again. The new 3rd gen Type S came a little bit late in the 3rd gen's runtime for sure, launching in 2007, and sadly at the same time, the base model TL's horsepower number was dropped quite a bit, all the way down to only 258 horsepower, which is still good, don't get me wrong, but 270 is a lot better. They claim that they dropped the horsepower because of horsepower laws, but I have a funny feeling that it was to make the new TL Type S seem even faster than it really is. The Type S was offered with a new engine completely, a 3.5 liter V6, and it managed to make an insanely good 290 horsepower, which for reference is more than a Nissan 350Z. And even though I own a 350Z and I love my car, the TL just sounds like it was too good to be true. I mean, it was a reliable and cheap daily driver with sports car levels of speed and BMW levels of luxury, all for the same cost as something like a Civic Si. And I was not the only person to notice this. The car sold incredibly well. Whether it was a grandma just getting the base model automatic or a car guy getting the Type S manual, the car was built with everyone in mind. So of course, since a lot of these cars were built, there's a lot of them out there, meaning you can find one of these absolute monsters of a daily driver for around $3,000 all day long if you don't mind if it has a little bit of miles on it, which shouldn't be an issue at all, considering it is still a Honda at heart.
With a premium 8-speaker sound system with iPod integration, it's meant to be heard. And with an available 305 horsepower engine, it's most definitely meant to be driven. The Acura TL. Aggression in its most elegant form.
The 4th generation TL would launch in 2009 and was kind of a disappointment, to be honest, and it seems the public would agree. For example, the 3rd generation TL was selling well over 70,000 models per year, but the 4th gen only got around 40k at launch and only went down from there. I just wish they kind of like showed the design to some human eyeballs before releasing this, because I have a very hard time believing that somebody looked at this car and thought to themselves, yeah, this goes hard. They're gonna go crazy for this one. They're gonna buy it all up. But either way, the car was technically better. The 3.5 liter V6 found in the previous Type S was now offered in the base model, and they did bring back the Type S, but instead they called it the Type SH-AWD, which just sounds like way too much letters for me, but it stood for Super Handling All-Wheel Drive. Wild. It was now given a 3.7 liter V6 and it made a very decent 305 horsepower. However, it was significantly heavier than the previous third generation, meaning it was actually not as quick. They of course offered a bunch of new tech like keyless entry, a touchscreen, Bluetooth audio, which by the way the audio system was still remarkable, and more comfortable seats just to name a few, but I don't think many people really cared, to be honest. The car had always kind of been built to serve a purpose no matter what kind of a driver you were. If you liked more spirited driving but needed something that wouldn't break down all the time, then the manual TL Type S was for you. But if you didn't care about racing at all and you just wanted a daily driver, then the automatic base model was for you. And that obviously worked since the sales numbers were so high. But with the 4th generation TL, the only people that are really going to get any sort of enjoyment out of this car were the people looking for the comfortable daily driver, and that kind of sucks. After the absolute failure of the 4th generation TL, they decided to give the car a whole name change and called it the TLX, but that's a different car for a completely different video. To me, the TL has always been a car that, to be honest with you, was never at the front of my wish list. It's not that I don't like the car, I absolutely love the 3rd generation TL, and if you've ever watched one of my budget car videos, there's a good chance that the car is always towards the top of my list. But I feel like I just forget about the car so much, and that's because the car wasn't trying to be flashy. It was built to serve a purpose as a daily driver that absolutely anybody in the world could get behind the wheel of and have a good time. It never had an insane motor like the Integras or Civics that we've seen in the past, and it never looked like a supercar like the NSX or S2000, but it had a damn near perfect combination of everything that makes those other cars so great. Nowadays, you can find a 3rd gen TL for right around 3K to 5K, and a 2nd gen TL for even less than that, and to me, that's arguably the best first car for any car guy out there. It has Civic levels of reliability, S2000 levels of horsepower, Integra levels of styling, and BMW levels of luxury, all while still being cheaper than almost all of those things. And I don't know about you, but to me, that is what makes the Acura TL so great. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of what makes the Acura TL so great. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. Let me know what other deep dives you'd like to see. I think pretty soon the next one is hopefully going to be the Subaru Forester, but I don't know. I am open for any sort of ideas, whatever cars you'd like to see me do a deep dive on, tell you the history of. I will absolutely give it a shot. Thank you guys so much for watching though. I do appreciate it. Obviously in the top of the description is going to be a link to my Grand Theft Auto Online channel. If you like GTA Online, go check it out. I'd really appreciate it, man. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Das Vidania. Have a nice night.